you are cultural. I talked about this a lot when we talked in the social categorization lectures about the history of the U.S. Census. The expansion of racial categories in the U.S. Census is really a product of historical and social forces. One thinks of that famous crack that Barack Obama made to who was it, Jay Leno. I really was black before I started running for president, right? Well, people were black or white or Hispanic or whatever long before the census took an interest in that, but the interest in race takes on different flavor at particular times and in particular places. Nell Irvin Painter, who's a historian at Princeton University, has recently published a wonderful book on what she calls the history of whiteness, in which she traces not the evolution of certain kinds of categories, but rather the very concept of the white, so-called white race, whatever you want to call that. Here's the short version of that story. Painter actually points out that in the ancient world, there were no racial distinctions of any sort. The ancient Greeks and the Romans distinguished themselves from the barbarians, the Celts and the Teutons and people like that. But that wasn't a distinction that was based on skin color. In fact, the Greeks and the Romans, it turns out, looked down on the barbarians because the barbarians were too white. Yeah? They're kind of swarthy types, and the barbarians were white, and so whiteness wasn't all that great. The emphasis on whiteness really comes into play in the middle of the Enlightenment. 1776, a German named Johann Friedrich Blumenbach starts what he calls racial science, and it's to Blumenbach that we owe the conventional classification of people into Caucasians and Mongolians and Malays and Negroids and Americans, the five races that come straight out of Blumenbach, and was imported into American conceptions of race by no less a Democrat than Thomas Jefferson and Ralph Waldo Emerson, who spent an inordinate amount of time worried about the definition of whiteness and blackness. There's a fascinating letter in the Jefferson archives in which Jefferson is trying mathematically to figure out exactly how many black great grandparents on your mother's side you had to have before you were considered black as opposed to white. These guys were really interested in this. But what's interesting is that in 19th century America, the whole concept of the so-called white race is something that evolves. Jefferson and Emerson began just by admitting Anglo-Saxons. Nobody else was white, just Anglo-Saxons. And then somebody turned around and discovered that 40% of the American population of the 13 colonies was German, so they admitted the Teutons, and then later they admitted Nordics, Norwegians, and Swedes, and Finns, and people like me. Aryans, which doesn't mean Indian, it means a different part of Europe. Alpines, Eastern Europeans came in relatively late. And then finally, kind of bringing things full circle, it wasn't until the end of the 19th century that in American race theory, Mediterraneans, Greeks, and Italians were given the designation of whiteness. So this makes it very clear that this is a concept that's not a biological given. This is not a concept that any alien would come to applying the powers of his or her reason. This is a social construct that takes on reality and is real only at a particular time and only in a particular place. Okay, so Ian Hacking, who's a Canadian philosopher, is quite an interesting guy, got interested in this a couple of years ago, and he argued that he pointed out that there were huge numbers of books and papers and doctoral dissertations, I think half of them produced here at Berkeley, all of which had titles which were variants on the social construction of something. Authorship in literature, the social construction of the emotions, social construction of knowledge, of quarks, even there is such a paper, and the social construction of reality in general. He asked in this book, what's going on here? What do people mean by something being socially constructed? And he argued that at the core, all social constructivist views have these three propositions in common. The first is that the meanings of things are not given once and for all. They're not inherent and immutable, but rather meanings of objects and events are historically contingent. They can change from one time to another, and they're the product of particular social forces. Something will have a particular meaning in American culture, for example, that it doesn't have in Polish culture or Japanese culture or whatever. That's kind of characteristic of this post-Enlightenment idea that things are social constructions. And a very interesting chapter that Hacking actually goes through and says, look, social constructivism has a kind of progression to it, and you can stop anywhere, but all versions of social constructionism begin with the proposition that some entity, X, whiteness, masculinity, whatever, appears to be inevitable, appears to be some kind of feature of objective reality, but it turns out that thing need not have existed to begin with. Or if it did have to exist, it didn't have to exist in the form it actually took. That its existence and its form is not necessarily inevitable. And he says, if you kind of keep going with this for a while, you get to this view that, whatever this thing is, it's pretty bad, right? Like modern conceptions of gender differences or race differences or whatever, and maybe we would be better off without it. You don't have to go this far, but basically all social constructivists begin with the idea that there are at least some features of the world that aren't inevitable, that they need not exist at all, and if they do exist, they need not exist in the form that they actually take. I'm going to skip over this, because again, I'll just kind of apply this for a second to the case of gender. You want to make a distinction between the objective fact and the implications of that objective fact. Biological sex, whether you're chromosomally XX or XY or whatever, may be an objective fact, but the general idea here is that gender identity, your sense of yourself as a man or a woman, your gender role, whether you behave in a masculine or feminine way, or even your sexual orientation, whether you're sexually attracted to people of the same sex or the opposite sex, these are things that kind of reflect either individual or social constructions. There's nothing biologically inevitable about them. Okay? There are plenty of genetically XX people out there who are not particularly feminine. There are plenty of genetically XY people out there who are not particularly masculine, and so on. They choose how to behave. It's not given in their genes. John Searle, this is the famous David Levine caricature of Professor Searle from the New York Review of Books, in case none of you have ever seen it, has also been grappling with this recently. Those of you who have taken Searle's Philosophy 132 have seen some of this in action. If ever there was a classic example of an Enlightenment thinker on campus, it's Professor Searle, but he also acknowledges that there's something going on here, that there are certain aspects of reality that really do appear to be socially constructed in the way that, in much the way that post-Enlightenment thinkers think is the case. The three classic examples from Searle's work is money. Okay? Money turns out to be money just because we say it's money. Okay, the dollar bill has no intrinsic value. Okay, you can't even change it anymore for $1 worth of silver or $1 worth of gold. Somebody right at the moment, it's Secretary of the Treasury Timothy Geithner, says it's a dollar bill, and it's a dollar bill because it might not have been a dollar bill. There weren't always dollar bills. There weren't even always dollars, and the dollar bill doesn't mean anything in other places. Marriage, people are married because they say they're married, and because somebody else says they're married. What's interesting about this, just to kind of steal a little thunder from the later part of this, is that it's an objective fact that you're married if you're married. Okay, and if you don't think that's true, try not to be married if you're married. Okay, you get into all sorts of legal trouble and all sorts of things like that. But the fact is that the only reason you're married is because you believe you are. You say you are. Somebody else said you are. They bring that objective reality into being by what Searle and other people would call a speech act, simply by saying that they are. So there are things, and property rights too. Everybody's property rights are an objective fact. They're enforced by law, but they only make sense in a culture where there's a certain concept of property. If you don't have a culture where there's a certain concept of property, you don't have such a thing as property rights. They're not things that are not historically contingent. So there are these things that are what they are because we think they are what they are, okay? But the paradox here is that they are what they are objectively. It's objectively true that a dollar bill is a dollar bill. It's objectively true that I'm married, and it's objectively true that as a property owner, I have certain rights that non-property owners don't have. But all these objective truths are brought into existence by acts of speech and thought. And how does that happen? Okay. Well, okay. First, again, we're using Searle's language here. There are certain facts about the world that are what Searle would call brute facts. They're matters of physics and biology. They exist like protons and supernovae, independently of our thoughts or our institutions or whatever. And when we describe them in language, we're using language just to describe this reality that's independent of our minds. But then Searle wants to point out there are certain institutional facts which exist only in the context of certain human collectivities or institutions. They're brought into being by acts of speech, but just because they're brought into being by an act of speech doesn't mean that they're just a matter of opinion. It's not a matter of opinion that I'm married. It's an objective fact that I'm married, okay? Even though that fact did not exist before certain people spoke certain kinds of words. Okay, so big question, this is Searle's big question, right now, how can there be an objective reality that is what it is only because we think it is what it is? Yeah? No, you don't want to call it collectively subjective because I'm married regardless of what anybody thinks, okay? It's just somebody I can say, I can go to a bar tonight and I can turn to somebody and say, oh, I'm not really married or whatever, okay? But I am married, okay? I can persuade somebody that I'm not. I wouldn't do such a thing, of course, nor should anybody do such a thing. But you could, okay? But it's not subjectively true that I'm married. It's objectively true that I'm married, okay? I'm on my second marriage. This is something a lot of people know about me, it's really nobody's business. But my first marriage was a common law marriage in the state of Pennsylvania where you can do that. And when I went to get divorced in the state of Massachusetts, I actually had to prove to the judge in the state of Massachusetts that I was actually married. Didn't actually believe it. So I had to bring in all the documents and bring in affidavits from witnesses and all sorts of stuff like that to show that yes, they spoke these words and they did this, which you could do in the state of Pennsylvania, right? So it was an objective fact. The judge didn't say, I don't believe you're married, just go away, get out of my courtroom, right? He had to do certain kinds of things to dissolve that marriage. There's nothing subjective about it. There are all sorts of objective implications for being married that had to be dealt with. Okay, but the fact of the matter is, this objective fact was brought into being just by saying words. Language brought this fact into existence. And so what we have to do, what Searle, I think this is a really interesting insight from Searle, is that we need to distinguish between two different meanings of the objective-subjective distinction. Searle argues that people have difficulty thinking about this clearly because they confuse what he calls the ontological sense of objective and subjective, and the epistemological sense of subjective and objective. Okay, so he argues first, with respect to ontology, there are two modes of existence, objective and subjective. Things exist objectively when they don't depend on anybody's attitudes or experiences. Things exist subjectively when they exist only as experienced by somebody, only as experienced by somebody. But that's quite different from the epistemic sense of the objective and the subjective, because we got these two forms of knowledge. Subjective knowledge takes the first person mode, okay, where something is either true or false depending on the attitudes and feelings of somebody. If I say to you, my cat Fedora is a beautiful cat, that's true in my head. You might look at it and say, it's the ugliest cat I've ever seen. It's not objectively true that Fedora, well, of course it is objectively true. She's an unbelievably beautiful cat. But there's somebody out there is going to disagree, okay? And then there is this objective third person mode, where the truth value is independent of the attitudes and feelings of anybody who might be evaluating. We have to keep these things, we want to keep these things separate. So we've got these features of the world, some of which Searle calls intrinsic because they are true regardless of what people think, okay? They are ontologically objective. Okay, they have objective existence, but they're also epistemically objective because those features are present in the world regardless of what anybody thinks. And then there are certain features of the world that are observer relative. Okay, they're true only because we think they're true. They may be ontologically subjective in the sense of their mode of existence, but they're still epistemically objective. They're true regardless of what anybody, regardless of the attitudes and feelings of any individual person. Okay, so just to kind of bring this to an end, when you think about people, trying to understand people, there are certain facts about people that are intrinsic to those people. Their height, their weight, their biological sex, or I suppose even whether they're active or inactive kinds of people. And then it appears to be the case that there are some aspects of people that are observer relative in that those facts about the person depend on the attitudes and feelings of the observer. Somebody can be active or inactive. I can time how long they stand up or sit down, how long they're in motion or steady. And then I can code that as aggressiveness or as passivity. I can code their behavior as extroverted or introverted, or masculine or feminine, or intelligent or dull. In social cognition, there are some facts about people we're trying to understand that are intrinsic to them, that exist independent of the observer. There are other facts that are observer relative because they're facts that exist inside the head of the individual. And in social cognition, you meet this kind of distinction where you don't meet it in the non-social world. Nobody in his right mind would say protons don't exist independent of the perceptions of some physicists. But whether you code behavior as extroverted or introverted, whether you code somebody as masculine or feminine or whatever, that does depend on your perspective. Okay, so that's really all we have to say about this. except the sort of final punchline here is that you've got to understand that when you talk about science, it turns out there are two quite different kinds of sciences. The natural sciences, like physics, and chemistry, and biology, and cosmology, are trying to understand those features of the world that are observer-independent, that exist independently of the observer. The social sciences, sociology, anthropology, political science, economics, are trying to understand those features of the world that depend on the observer, that are in some sense historically and culturally contingent. My take on this is that psychology is as interesting and as frustrating and as aggravating as it is for both people who are practicing it and people who are trying to learn it, because psychology is at one and the same time both a natural science and a social science. Psychology is trying to understand aspects of mental life, some features of mental life are observer independent, others are observer dependent. When you talk about social cognition is trying to understand how people understand the world around them. Some of those features of the world that we're trying to understand are observer independent, and others are dependent on our own cognitive processes. So in social cognition, we're trying to study something that we're creating at the same time as we're trying to study it. And that's what makes the topic difficult and interesting. Okay, we'll pull this together, I hope, on Wednesday in our last class. Have a good day, and we'll see you in a couple of days.